Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into The Law of One, Book 2 with me today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to really unpack this one. There's so much to explore.
It's definitely dense, but that's why we're here to break it down and see how it applies to our lives, right? Not just a surface skim this time.
Exactly. This book goes deep, like really deep. It's not just about summarizing the concepts, it's about how we can actually live them.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. It doesn't shy away from the big questions like, what's the universe all about? Where do we fit in? What's the point of all this? You know,
I love that it ties those big cosmic questions back to our everyday experiences. It shows how everything is connected, how our individual choices actually matter on a grand scale.
that's what I'm hoping we can dig into today, how these big ideas translate into practical wisdom we can use in our lives.
For sure. And it all starts with understanding the source of creation, which the book calls intelligent infinity.
Okay, so intelligent infinity, that sounds pretty complex, right? Like, what does that even mean?
Think of it as the ultimate source of everything, like a universal heartbeat that sets all of creation in motion.
So it's not like a person or a god in the traditional sense.
Not exactly. It's more like a boundless field of energy and consciousness.
Okay, I'm sort of getting it. But how does something like a boundless field of energy actually create the universe?
The book uses this really cool analogy of a black hole. Imagine this powerful energy flowing outwards, creating everything, and then eventually being drawn back to the source.
That's wild, a cycle of creation and return. It's kind of like breathing in and out, right?
Exactly. And in this process of creation, the book explains how intelligent infinity creates the first distortion, which is free will.
Free will, why is that a distortion?
Well, think about it. For the creator to truly know itself, it had to give us the power to choose, to experience the universe in all its complexity.
That makes sense. Without choice, there's no real learning or growth. We just be robots, right?
Right. Free will is what makes us unique, what gives us the ability to shape our own reality and ultimately determine our own destinies.
So free will is like the spark that ignites the whole cosmic game.
Precisely. It's the foundation for everything that unfolds in the universe. And from that first distortion of free will, the book describes how creation unfolds through a series of densities.
Okay, so we got free will, we got densities. What are these densities exactly? Are we talking about like physical dimensions?
Not quite. Think of densities as levels of spiritual evolution, like different classrooms in a cosmic school.
So each density offers its own unique lessons and experiences.
Exactly. And the goal is to move through these densities, evolving and expanding our consciousness until we ultimately reach the eighth density, which is a return to the source, emerging back into intelligent infinity.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. So where do we fit into all of this? What density are we in right now?
We're currently in third density, which is all about self-awareness and making choices.
Choices like?
Well, the big one in third density is the choice between service to others and service to self.
So like when I decide to help someone in need, that's service to others. And when I act out of pure self-interest, that's service to self.
Exactly. And the choices we make every single day shape our experience of reality and determine which path we're moving towards.
Wait, so you're saying that even something as simple as deciding whether to hold the door open for someone or let it slam in their face, that has cosmic significance?
In a way, yes. It all contributes to our overall vibration, our alignment with either the path of love and unity or the path of separation and control. And it's not about being perfect or judging ourselves for every little choice. It's more about becoming aware of the patterns we're creating and consciously choosing to align with the path that feels most resonant with our souls.
So the point isn't to force ourselves to always be good or selfless. It's about understanding the bigger picture and making choices that are aligned with our deepest truth.
Exactly. And the more we practice aligning with our chosen path, the more our energy system reflects that choice. This is where the concept of energy centers or chakras comes in.
Oh yeah, I was wondering when we'd get to chakras. The book talks a lot about how our energy centers reflect our spiritual growth.
Right. Each chakra corresponds to a specific density and stage of spiritual development. The book explains how a blocked or imbalanced chakra can manifest as challenges in our lives.
So if someone is constantly struggling with communication, it could be a sign of a blocked throat chakra.
Exactly. And by working to clear and balance our chakras, we can actually create a smoother path for our spiritual evolution.
This is starting to make a lot of sense. It's not just about abstract concepts. It's about how our energy system, our emotions, and our physical experiences are all interconnected.
And that's what I love about The Law of One, Book 2. It doesn't shy away from the practical side of spiritual growth. It gives us tools and insights we can actually use to transform our lives.
So how can we apply this knowledge to those everyday challenges we all face? Because let's be honest, life can be tough sometimes.
Well, The Law of One, Book 2 offers a powerful reframing of challenges, what it calls catalyst. It says, and I'm quoting here, pain and hardship do not happen to you, but for you.
For you. That's a hard one to swallow sometimes, especially when we're going through something really difficult. Like, how can heartbreak or illness or loss be for us?
I know, it's a challenging concept, but think of it this way. Every experience, no matter how painful, is an opportunity to learn and grow.
So instead of asking, why me, we can ask, what am I learning from this?
Precisely. Every challenge is a chance to develop greater compassion, wisdom, and resilience.
So maybe instead of seeing challenges as punishments or setbacks, we can start to view them as opportunities for spiritual evolution.
Exactly. And that's a powerful shift in perspective.
It's like reframing the whole story of our lives, seeing ourselves not as victims, but as active participants in our own growth.
And that's where the real power lies. You know, one of the things that really blew my mind in The Law of One, Book 2, was its take on time.
Oh yeah? Like, how so?
Well, it suggests that time, as we experience it, is actually an illusion.
Wait, time isn't real. I mean, I feel like I'm constantly running out of time.
Right. It certainly feels real in third density, doesn't it? But the book suggests it's a necessary distortion, part of the learning process here.
Okay, so it's like a tool for learning, but not the ultimate truth.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine trying to learn and grow without a sense of past, present, and future.
Yeah, that would be pretty chaotic.
Right. But from a higher perspective, the book says that all experiences across all densities exist simultaneously.
So it's not that time doesn't exist, it's more that it's not as linear as we perceive it.
Right. Think of it like everything is happening all at once, but we're only experiencing a tiny sliver of that vastness in our third density reality.
So it's almost like we have blinders on, limiting our perception of time.
Exactly. And as we evolve, we start to see beyond those limitations and get a glimpse of a bigger picture.
That's pretty mind-blowing. And the book also talks about evolution itself not being a straight line, but a spiral, right?
Yes, we're moving through these densities in a spiral motion, always expanding outward, but also returning to a central point.
That's a beautiful image. It feels much more expansive than just moving in one direction.
Totally. And speaking of spirals, the book also dives into the role of pyramids in spiritual work.
Oh yeah, the pyramids. That was a fascinating section. Always been obsessed with those things.
Right, they're not just these giant tombs, as some people believe.
No, the book suggests they were actually designed as energy amplifiers, right?
Exactly, tools for enhancing spiritual growth and connecting with higher realms.
So they're like ancient technology, but instead of focusing on the material world, they're designed to amplify our spiritual connection.
Exactly. The Law of One, Book 2 explains how the pyramid's shape concentrates energy in a very specific way.
Like a lens focusing sunlight.
Yes, precisely. And that focused energy can be used for all sorts of spiritual practices.
Like what? What kind of things can you do with pyramid energy?
Well, think of meditation. You can either meditate inside a pyramid or even visualize yourself surrounded by one.
Interesting. So by understanding the principles behind pyramid energy, we can use them to enhance our own spiritual practices.
Exactly. It's about tapping into the wisdom of ancient cultures and using those tools to support our own growth.
And it wasn't just the Egyptians who understood this, was it?
No, not at all. The Law of One, Book 2, points out that cultures all over the world built pyramid-like structures.
So it was like a global understanding of this universal energy. We've really lost touch with something powerful, haven't we?
Yeah, it seems that way. Maybe that's why the book emphasizes meditation so much, is like a way to reconnect with that ancient wisdom and tap into the energy that flows through all things.
The book does talk a lot about different types of meditation and how they can help us clear distortions and connect with our higher selves.
Right, and even describes how some advanced practitioners use meditation to raise the planetary vibration. Pretty cool stuff.
That's incredible. So it's not just about personal transformation, it's about contributing to the collective awakening of humanity.
Exactly. And that's especially important now because The Law of One, Book 2, talks about a planetary shift that's currently underway.
Oh yeah, the shift. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Sure. And the book describes it as an intensification of energy, which makes our thoughts manifest more readily.
So our choices are becoming even more important.
Yes. Every thought, every action has a ripple effect. We're literally shaping the reality we experience.
And that's happening on a collective level too, right? It's not just about our individual evolution anymore.
Right. As the Earth raises its vibration, we're all being called to choose love over fear, unity over separation.
I can see how that would be challenging for some people. Change can be scary.
Absolutely. And the book acknowledges that this shift can be intense, especially for those who are clinging to old patterns of fear and separation.
But it's not about blaming them or judging them, right?
No, not at all. It's about understanding that everyone is on their own unique journey.
And that we all have the power to choose how we experience this shift.
Precisely. We're not victims, we're creators.
And The Law of One, Book 2, offers so many tools to help us create consciously.
Yes. And one of the most important takeaways for me is this: the veil of forgetting is a gift, not a limitation.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we may not remember our past lives or fully understand our connection to the Creator, but that doesn't mean that connection isn't there.
So we're not really separated, we just think we are.
Exactly. And through practices like meditation, we can start to pierce that veil and access the wisdom and guidance that's always available to us.
So it's about remembering who we truly are, sparks of the Creator.
Yes. And recognizing our inherent interconnectedness with all things.
Before we move on, I'm curious to hear what's resonating with you, the listener. What parts of The Law of One, Book 2 are particularly meaningful to you right now? You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me is how the book sort of redefines the whole idea of good and bad,
Yeah, it definitely challenges that kind of black and white thinking, doesn't it?
right? Like, is there really such a thing as good versus evil, or is it all just part of a bigger picture that we're not fully grasping?
Well, The Law of One, Book 2 seems to suggest that duality is a kind of training ground for our souls, you know?
Okay, so it's like those opposing forces, light and dark, good and bad, those are all just tools for learning.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how can we understand compassion if we haven't experienced suffering? How can we choose love if we don't understand fear?
That makes sense. Like those contrasts help us define our values and figure out what really matters to us.
Right. And the choices we make as we navigate that duality, those choices shape our spiritual evolution.
And it's interesting because the book talks about two distinct paths we can choose, service to others or service to self.
Yeah, and it's not about one path being inherently better or worse than the other. It's more about understanding the different energies and outcomes associated with each.
So service to others is all about love, compassion, unity.
Right, it's about working for the benefit of the whole, recognizing our interconnectedness, and acting from a place of empathy and understanding.
And service to self is.
It's about pursuing personal gain, power, control, often at the expense of others. It's a path of separation and domination.
Now, the book doesn't shy away from discussing these negatively polarized entities, right? Like the Orion group.
Yeah, and it's easy to get caught up in fear or judgment when we hear about these beings who've chosen a path of service to self. But I think it's important to remember that they're playing a role too.
You know, a role. What do you mean?
Well, they provide a kind of cosmic contrast. They challenge us to refine our understanding of the law of one, to really examine our own choices and strengthen our commitment to the path we've chosen.
So it's like they're pushing us to become more conscious, more deliberate in our actions.
Exactly. And it's not about getting caught up in a battle of good versus evil. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose which influences we align with.
That's empowering, right? We're not just pawns in some cosmic game. We have agency.
Absolutely. The Law of One, Book 2 is all about reminding us of our inherent power, our ability to create our reality through the choices we make.
And thankfully, we're not alone in this process, right? The book mentions higher beings and guardians who are here to help us.
Yes, it describes a whole hierarchy of beings who are assisting in our evolution, from those in fourth and fifth density acting as guides to even higher density entities working on a cosmic scale to ensure the harmonious unfolding of creation.
It's like there's this whole network of support that we're usually unaware of.
And it's not about these beings controlling us or interfering with our free will. They respect our choices and offer guidance only when we're open to receiving it.
Okay, so how do we connect with these higher beings? If we're open to receiving that guidance, how do we tap into it?
The Law of One, Book 2 suggests practices like meditation, prayer, and simply setting intentions. It's about cultivating a sense of openness and trust, allowing that wisdom and guidance to flow through us.
So it's not some exclusive club, only for those who have reached a certain level of spiritual development.
No, not at all. It's available to anyone who seeks it with a sincere heart.
It's really comforting to know that we have this support, this connection to something greater than ourselves.
The Law of One, Book 2 points us back to that truth that we're not just isolated individuals struggling through life. We're sparks of the Creator, interconnected with all that is.
It's a beautiful message, a call to awaken to our true nature and embrace the incredible journey of spiritual evolution.
And to remember that we're all in this together. We're all evolving, expanding, and ultimately returning to the source.
That's a pretty inspiring way to end our deep dive. I hope you've enjoyed exploring The Law of One, Book 2 with us today.
Me too. It's been a truly enriching conversation.
And before we sign off, we'll leave you with a question from the book, something to ponder on your own journey. What is the simplest being that is manifested? Reflect on that, and may your path be filled with light and understanding.